Now, when there is a rights issue, there is some bonus element in the rights issue that the entity comes in with some resources but doesn't pay for the full value of the fair value of the share in the market. Some resources means some bonus element. So we need to treat that bonus element as if it has happened at the beginning of the previous year. Even in case of rights issue, we make the same treatment. We treat the bonus element as if it has happened at the beginning of the previous year and calculate it in the weighted average number of shares outstanding by the end of the year. We'll see how it is done. And this is an example of the bonus issue. In this case, the number of ordinary shares increased without an increase in resources, treated by adjusting the number of shares outstanding before the end of the period. The proportionate change in number of shares outstanding as if the event had occurred at the beginning of the earliest period reported. Now, what we'll assume? The life seems simple now. Bonus issue of 100,000, shares outstanding were 400,000. So we'll assume that this 100,000 has taken place at the beginning of the previous year. So EPS calculation will be on 80,000 divided by 500,000, 75,000 divided by 500,000. This is how we deal with bonus issue. Any concerns, anyone till now? Any concerns? Even if I get one reply, I'll be assured that I can move on. Do I need to give responsibility to someone that you should reply? Anyways. The rights issue, as I said, that there is some bonus element. So we need to readjust the previous year EPS, and we also need to calculate the new number of shares for this year because there is some bonus element in the weighted average number of shares. Now, how to deal with it? There is an issue of new shares to existing shareholders at a price below the current market value. The current market value is higher, but they are offering it to the existing shareholders as a goodwill gesture that you can own the new shares at a reduced price. Now, to arrive at this figure for EPS, we need to calculate first of all the theoretical X rights price. Theoretical X rights price simply means the weighted average price. This is weighted average value per share. Now, in this example, if you notice, the number of shares in issue are 10,000 shares. There is 144 rights issue at 3 per share. The market value of the share is 3.5 with rights value. With rights value means what is the rate without rights value? Theoretical X rights price. This is with rights value in the market. What is theoretical X rights price? What is the average price for the shareholder who is owning these shares? What is the average price for the shareholder who is the existing shareholder of the entity? What is the average price to them? This is the market price. 3.5 is the market price, but average price for them we need to calculate. We'll use this price to make the adjustments for the bonus element. Can you tell me the theoretical X rights price? 144 rights issue. So there are 4 shares which are already issued, and the value of those 4 shares is 3.5 in the market. Now this one share is being issued at a price of 3. Dealing with the rights issue. Four shares value at the rate of 3.5 is equal to 4 into 3.5. One new share is being issued at a price of just 3. Value of this is 3. Total shares are 5. 5 shares. Now the owner who is owning them, he's got these 5 shares for 17. What is the average price for the existing owner? Average price for the existing owner is 17 divided by 5. That is 3.4. This is also known as TERP, theoretical X rights price. What does it mean? It simply means that we need this price for making adjustment of the previous year EPS and in the calculation of the current year EPS. We need to make adjustments in the number of shares outstanding for previous year and current year EPS calculation. So what we need the weighted average number of shares outstanding for the previous year. We need the weighted average number of shares outstanding for the current year EPS calculation. Now, if the previous year earnings were equal to 400,000 and number of shares outstanding in the previous year were 10,000. How much is the basic EPS? Divide by 10,000. This is the basic EPS of the previous year. If 10,000 shares were available in the previous year, how much money we need to shell out if we had to buy the same number of shares today? 10,000 shares, if we had to buy today, what is the price we need to pay? If we go by this calculation, if we need to buy 10,000 shares, that today's value is 3.5. How much money the existing shareholder would have to pay if they had to buy today 10,000 shares? They had to pay 3.5. But if the same shares are available to them only for a price of 3.4, how many shares they could have bought? 10,000 shares are existing at the end of the previous year. The price today is 3.5. If we go out in the market to buy same number of shares, the existing shareholder will have to pay 3.5. So how much money they had to pay? They had to pay equivalent to 3.5 into 10,000. But if the same shares are available to them for just 3.4, how many shares they can buy? How many shares they can buy? 35,000 divided by 3.4, that is equal to 10,294. So the bonus element in this calculation, when they are issuing one share for a price of 3, is 294 shares without any resources coming in. Because if someone would have spent 35,000 in the market, they would have been successful in buying 10,294 shares. You can also do this directly. You can make this adjustment. Now, what will be the adjusted EPS? Adjusted EPS for previous year. Adjusted EPS for previous year will be earnings of 400,000 divided by 10,294. Adjusted EPS is equal to 400,000 divided by 10,294 is the value of the adjusted EPS for the previous year. Yes, Banu. So far, so I'm talking of the previous year adjusted EPS. This is a calculation for the previous year earnings. Current year I'll come to. So the requirement is that what we did in case of bonus issue. This year there was an issue of bonus 25,000, but we assume that this has taken place at the beginning of the previous year because there was no earning. Since there was a complete bonus, 100% bonus. In case of rights issue, there is a bonus element. Now we need to adjust this bonus element in the previous year EPS in our adjustments. Previous year EPS is given to us 40, but we need to make the adjustment of the bonus element in the previous year to be able to compare it with the current year. Like we did for the bonus issue for bonus issue adjustment for bonus issue calculation. In similar fashion, we also need to make adjustments for rights issue bonus element. And how it is done? Done in simple manner that if 10,000 shares were in issue last year and the price of 10,000 shares in the market today is 33.5, the existing shareholder would have to spend 35,000. And if they had 35,000, but for them it is available for only a price of 3.4, how many shares they could have purchased helps us in getting an adjusted number of shares for the previous year. So we use this for adjusting the EPS for the previous year. There's an adjustment to be done for previous year. Bhanu, is this clear? Hello? Now, if you wish to directly do this, if you wish to directly make this adjustment in the basic EPS calculation, how will you do it? Can I multiply this basic EPS with theoretical X rights price and divide it with fair value of the share? We get directly adjusted EPS. How? If you multiply 40 directly with theoretical X rights price, that is 3.4, and divide it with 3.5, what we get? 38.86. If you notice here what we did, what it is actually, it is the same thing. 400,000 divided by 10,000. This 10,000 is being multiplied with this 10,000 is being multiplied with what we did, 3.5, and divide by 3.4. The result being, so this was happening. This was happening below. That we adjusted the previous number of shares like we did here. Here what we did, we recalculated the EPS. We recalculated the EPS again by dividing it with the new number of shares. We got the recalculated adjusted EPS. In this example, we use the previous EPS calculated and directly multiplied with the theoretical X rights price and divided with the fair value. We got the adjusted EPS directly. What is the mathematics behind it? The mathematics behind it is that is 400,000 divided by 10,000 into 3.5. What happens indirectly? If we recalculate again, this 3.4 gets multiplied above and 3.5 remains below. This results in 40 into 3.4 divided by 3.5. Am I right? And we can get adjusted EPS directly. That is equivalent to. So mathematics, I again repeat, is a choice. Mathematics is a choice. Now this is the adjustment required for the previous year EPS. We also need to calculate the current year EPS and current year weighted average number of shares outstanding in case of a rights issue. We need to calculate this. On 1st January, the number of shares outstanding are 10,000. On 1st July, there is a rights issue that for every 4, 1 share issued. That was the case. One share for every 4 held. So that means the number of shares include for every 4, 1 share issued, that is 2,500, existing 10,000, total 12,500 as on 1st July. The weighted average number of shares outstanding, as we adjusted the bonus element for the previous year, we'll also need to adjust the bonus element for these 6 months. The number of shares outstanding. So 10,000 shares, if you multiply with the fair value of the share and divide by 3.4, and the period before rights issue is 6 months, so we take the fraction of the year plus the period after rights issue is 12,500 and fraction of the year after rights issue is 6 months, we get the weighted average number of shares outstanding for the rights issue. If I write it in the formula, number of shares outstanding at the beginning of the year, number of shares outstanding for the period before rights issue multiplied with fraction of the year before rights issue multiplied with fair value of the share and divide with theoretical exercise price. You know the reason now why I'm multiplying with 3.5, why I'm multiplying this 10,000 with the fair value of the share, to know the weighted average number of shares outstanding if the shares are available to the existing shareholders for a price of 3.4. What will be the number of shares outstanding? And the number of the period before the rights issue is only 6 months. So we are trying to adjust the bonus element in the period before the rights issue as well, like we did for the previous year. What we did the previous year, we did the same thing. Since it was for complete 12 months, the number of shares outstanding at the beginning of the previous year multiplied with 3.5 and divided by 3.4, and since this was for complete 12 months, we took exactly 10,000 into 3.5 divided by 4, that was equivalent to 10,294. The same exercise we need to do for the period before the rights issue. 10,000 multiplied by 3.5 by 3.4 into the period before the rights issue, 6 months. So we need to use the fraction of the year before the rights issue. Otherwise, it was for the previous year, it was full year. Fair value of the share divided by theoretical X rights price. This is the calculation for this, plus period after the rights issue multiply with number of shares after the rights issue. So this calculation is 10,000 into 3.4 divided by 3.4 into 6 by 12 turns out to be equivalent to the number of shares outstanding before the rights issue is 5147. Number of shares outstanding after the rights issue 12,500 into 6 by 12 equivalent to total number of shares to be used as denominator in EPS calculation in case of a rights issue is equivalent to 5147 plus 6250. 11,397 is the denominator for EPS calculation. So whatever is the earnings for this year and the previous year, the earnings for the current year is say 500,000. The number of shares to be used in EPS calculation we have already calculated as in the working 11,397. So the EPS so calculated is known as 500,000 divided by 43 point. This will be the EPS in case of rights issue. Now please open up your books and have a look at the procedures in the rights issue and let's discuss it again. Please open up your books. There is a note known as rights issue. There is an example of theoretical X rights price, and after it there is a procedures for rights issue calculation. So please read it along with me. Hope you are having the book. Hope you are having the book, or I'll read it for you. So procedure says that procedure for calculating the EPS for the current year and a corresponding figure for the previous year is as follows. So part A says that the EPS for the corresponding previous year should be multiplied. Now let me go read it together. The EPS for the corresponding previous year, that is 40, should be multiplied by the following fraction, and the fraction is the market price on the last day of the quotation is taken and as fair value immediately prior to exercise of rights as required by the standard. So what is the fair value of the share? Is the price on the last day of quotation is taken as the fair value immediately prior to exercise of rights. The day we exercise this right, what is the fair value on that particular day? So it is saying EPS for the corresponding previous year, that is 40, multiply with theoretical X rights fair value per share, which we calculated as 3.4, divided by fair value per share immediately before the exercise of rights, that fair value including of rights, that is 3.5, and we get adjusted EPS. Note 2, it says that to obtain the EPS for the current year. Note 2, EPS for the current year. Just read it along with me. To obtain the EPS for the current year, you should multiply the number of shares before the rights issue, that is 10,000, by the fraction of the year before the rights issue, that is 6 months, and by the following fraction, and the fraction is fair value per share, that is 3.5, and divided with theoretical tax rights price, we get the number of shares to be used in EPS calculation for the period before rights issue plus, remember there is a plus, fair value plus multiply the number of shares after the rights issue, that is 12,500, by the fraction of the year after the date of issue, added to figure calculated in step 1. So this is step 1, step 2, and whatever figure we calculated for the period after the rights issue, the total becomes the denominator for use in rights issue calculation. This is how we deal with rights issue and the bonus element in a rights issue for the adjustment of current year EPS as well as the previous year EPS. Hope this is clear to everyone. If anyone has any doubt, please ask.
Just to know, how did we arrive at 12,500?
12,500 we arrived at 10,000 number of shares were in issue at the beginning of the year. For every 4 share, 1 share was issued. So 2,500 more shares were issued. So 10,000 were existing, 2,500 new, total 12,500.
Got it.
Sure?
Yeah.
Did you ever think that this EPS calculation rights issue was done on the basis of this? The reason behind it. Hope this is clear. And you do not have to mug up this formula. So how this formula has been arrived is, this is the reason behind it. Hope this is clear to everyone. Just give me a confirmation so that I can move forward. If anyone still has any doubt regarding this, I can repeat it for them. Okay, thank you. So procedure for calculating the EPS for the current and a corresponding figure for the previous year are as follows. I've already discussed this. Adjust the previous year EPS with the EPS for the corresponding. So there's a catch in this, is that if you're directly trying to adjust the previous year EPS, multiply with the average price and divide with the fair value. But if you're recalculating the EPS, then you'll multiply it only with the number of shares. And you'll multiply with the number of shares, the fair value, and then divide it with the average value. So you need to be very clear what you're doing, where you're using this fraction. This fraction will be used directly with the EPS calculated. But if you are recalculating the EPS, then this will be inversed for the current year. Inverse means the number of shares outstanding will be multiplied with the fair value and divide by theoretical exercise price if you're recalculating it. So be careful. So these are the step 1 and 2 which we used in rights issue calculation. Number of shares before rights issue 10,000, fraction of the year before the date of issue 6 months, fair value prior to the exercise of rights 3.5, average price 3.4. That if the existing owner would have spent 3.5 per share and they had to purchase 10,000 shares, but if they are getting it only for a price of 3.4, how many shares they could have bought? That is the bonus element. The additional shares they could buy is the bonus element. We not only do this for the previous year, we also do it for the period before the rights issue, also contains some bonus element. Because after the rights issue, there is some money coming in. So we consider that there is some money flowing in and it will result in some. And so we increase the number of shares directly from 10,000 to 12,500. The total becomes the number of shares to be used in rights issue calculation. So you can do this, I guess. So I give you time to do this. Just giving you 5 minutes to calculate the average price and calculate the number of shares to be used in EPS calculation. Just give me the number of shares to be used in EPS calculation. Please do this. We'll do it quickly. That 5 shares, 5 rights issue. The company has 100,000 shares in issue, but then makes a 145 rights issue. For anyone holding 5 shares, they'll get 1 share. So what is the total number of shares outstanding after the end of the period? It turns out to be 20,000. And the market value on the last day of the quotation was 1.60. And the price it is available for is 1. So we calculate the average. Five shares at a market value of 1.6. Is equal to 1.6 into 5. 1 share for a price of 1. Total 6 shares for a total value of 9. Theoretical X rights price is equal to 9 by 6 1.50 is the theoretical X rights price. The previous year EPS, number of shares to be used in EPS calculation, 100,000 multiply with the fair value of the share, that is 1.60, divide by 1.5, get the number of shares to be used in EPS calculation for the previous year, that is 100,000 into 1.6 divided by 1.5. Current year EPS calculation, current year number of shares to be used in EPS calculation. So I'm only focusing on this. Step 1, number of shares in issue for the period before the rights issue, number of months. This happened in October. 9 months for the period before the rights issue. Fair value of the share 1.6 divided by 1.5. 80,000. In step 2, the number of shares outstanding after the rights issue, that is 20,000 shares issued, 1 for every 5, multiplied with the period after the rights issue. Total 110,000. This is for the period for the previous year.
Amit, just 1 second. Yeah, what the formula I see is that just it should be calculated by multiplying with theoretical X rights fair value per share divided by the fair value per share immediately before the exercise of rights. So that was the theoretical X rights fair value is 1.5, right?
Yes.
So we should multiply it with 1.5 and then divide with.
See, this I'm saying previous EPS number of shares. I did not adjust directly the EPS. If I adjust the EPS directly, then I'll use the formula direct adjust the EPS. Directly adjust the previous year EPS. How much is previous year EPS? Previous year EPS is 40,000 divided by 100,000. Previous year EPS is 40,000 divided by 100,000. 0.4 cents. Now, if I have to directly adjust this 0.4 cents, then I'll multiply this 0.4 cents with 1.5, that is average price, and divide it with fair value. I'll get the adjusted EPS. That is 37.5 cents. In this case, what I'm doing, I'm adjusting the previous year number of shares and previous year earnings. Previous year earnings were 40,000. So the adjusted EPS, if I adjust the number of shares, will be 40,000 divided by 106,667. Agree? 40,000 divided by 106,667. 37.5 cents. So as I said, mathematics is your choice. That's what I wanted to highlight actually, that how the fraction gets inversed. If I'm adjusting the EPS directly, the fraction is inversed. In this case, I'm multiplying with the theoretical exercise price and dividing with the 1.6. But if I'm adjusting the number of shares, I'm multiplying with the fair value and dividing with the average price. The logic is, if I had to purchase 100,000 shares, I had to buy them at a price of 1.6. And if I have the money available, 100,000 into 1.6, but the average price to me is 1.5, how many shares I could have bought? So this is what is happening in current year EPS calculation directly, if you noticed. 100,000 into 9 by 12 into 1.6 divided by 1.5. If I'm adjusting the number of shares, the same thing I did for the previous year number of shares, directly adjusting the number of shares. But if you wish to adjust directly the EPS calculated, if the number of shares or earnings are not available to you, then you can directly adjust the previous year EPS by multiplying it with the fraction, multiplying it with theoretical exercise price and dividing with fair value. Bhanu, hope this is clear.
Yes.
Okay. Actually, this is what I wanted you to highlight, because this creates a lot of confusion, like when we are actually doing it. Sometimes the fraction is inverse, sometimes it is 1.5 above, sometimes 1.5 is below. So when it is below and up, that's what I wanted to clear. Hope this is clear with everyone.